Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. This is part 3, the final part for today. It's Wednesday, January 16th, 2012. I'm Darko. Check out my YouTube channel, ddarko2012, ddarko2013, and my website is ggnonline.com. Okay, this first article I have up, it's going to be brief, this Pakistan part. It came up in the end of the news here, and I just needed to get through it. Yeah, so the U.S. is involved in anti-Shia violence in Pakistan. A political analyst says the U.S. is involved in the ongoing violence against Shia Muslims in Pakistan. Quote, "We can see that the targeted killing of Shias is merely a part of the broader U.S. agenda to ensure Pakistan and the entire Middle East region remain in chaotic confusion by inducing sectarian violence like they're doing in Syria." He described the U.S. role as an endgame in Pakistan, saying in this way the U.S. maintains its imperial grip and thereby prevents people from joining together and mounting any serious threat to its hegemony. He said the United States, along with Saudi Arabia, are prepared to do whatever is necessary anywhere in the Middle East to neutralize Shia resistance movements. The main reason for the U.S. approved brutal suppression by Saudi armed forces of protests in Bahrain, Yemen, and within Saudi Arabia itself. There is one additional reason in this case of Saudi Arabia, a long-standing Wahhabi hatred of Shia. Prime Minister's arrest ordered amid, quote, revolution. This is from Spiegel. Pakistan is plunged into a leadership crisis right before the elections, of course, very coincidentally and timely, as hundreds of thousands demonstrate against corruption. The country's high court has ordered the arrest of Prime Minister Ashraf, and so this populist cleric has declared a revolution. So there's some more background. Thousands of protesters rally in Pakistani capital, and they're fed up with the government saying it's corrupt and indifferent to the plight of the common citizens descended on the capital on Monday. So responding to the call of a charismatic cleric who has quickly become a powerful but mysterious political force. Mysterious. Pakistan government says it will hold elections by May 6. Under extreme pressure from political protest, probably induced by outside forces, it says here, was pushed Wednesday to announce a date for an election that would mark a historic democratic transfer of power. And last two articles I have for you for Pakistan is no business as usual with Pakistan after barbaric killings in Kashmir. And this is, of course, in the background or history or backdrop is that it was Pakistan saying that actually they attacked one of their outposts and one of their Pakistani guards was killed first, and then they responded. But it says here, Indian Prime Minister says that there cannot be business as usual between his country and neighboring Pakistan. After the barbaric act, there cannot be business as usual. So pretty simple. What has happened is unacceptable, and those responsible for this crime will have to be brought to book. If you remember on Monday, he said a pre-planned activity. This is what this attack was. This Pakistani attack was a pre-planned activity, and the Indian security forces will retaliate aggressively. We'll see. It says high alert as Pakistan mobilizes troops along their borders. So they deployed more troops across the international borders in the wake of rising tensions between two countries. A lot of military movement is being noticed there, and it says all along an international border for the last few days, which is not normal. Okay, I'm ready to move on here. All right, then we move to Russia. Ex-minister suggests ways to restore Russia-EU partnership. This is from the 16th, and this is interesting because you remember this article I just covered about a month ago when you have Zbigniew Brzezinski making comments on Georgia-Russian relations, saying that he thinks that Georgia can become an ally to Russia, but on the expense of its friendship with the U.S., and it goes on here, and he says that down at the bottom, in Russia, they should understand that they need to get closer to the West for flourishing and success, otherwise they will lose it with China. Democratization is one of the main preconditions for Russia's success, and this is likely to happen after Putin. You may assess this as a historic optimism, but I am sure that Russia's getting closer with the West is inevitable, Brzezinski said. So it says here that as relations between Moscow and Washington turn increasingly frosty, two former high-ranking Russian and American officials have called for a series of measures to bring the two nuclear superpowers back from the cold. This comes as President Vladimir Putin and Barack Obama are back in power for another 6 years and 4 years respectively. Then next up we have Russia is building diplomatic and military tools to prevent Western resistance to its Eurasian Union. Yeah, they're talking about SCO and stuff like that. They want something opposing NATO and kind of like a NATO-EU counterpart. So Then I saw this article from today. Russia to become European powerhouse by 2020. It would do to overtake German economy by 2020. They could overtake Germany before 2030, become the largest European economy, but in global rankings might then be overtaken itself by Brazil before 2050. Britain to lose status of world's 9th economy. So they're going to lose this prestigious status to be among the world's top 10 economies by the next 4 decades. Like what it just said in the other article, Britain will be overtaken by Mexico and Indonesia in 2050. Then you have Russian defense minister declares war on Footwraps. So kind of a weird story. Russia's new defense minister has ordered the army to do away with Footwraps, still widely used by Russian servicemen as a substitute for socks. His predecessor, this Serdikov, was fired in November amid a procurement scandal, also sought to establish universal use of socks in the army. I guess there were some guys with pneumonia just recently. That story that went out. Top Russian defense official detained over major graft from January 16th. So law enforcers have apprehended the acting head of Defense Ministry's logistic department with their probe into embezzlement case that already caused the dismissal of the country's defense minister. So a lot of shaking up going on. It says, what was Russian defense minister really sacked because he was cheating on his wife, the daughter of one of Putin's closest friends? This is back from November 6th. Then you have sniper kills Russian mob boss. So Grandpa San gunned down while leaving Moscow restaurant. So it's the 3rd time that they had an assassination on his life that it was actually successful. So he's the most influential criminal in the former Soviet Union. Like somebody else said, it says that basically that Putin, he didn't make the payments, enough payments or something like that, and Obama doesn't like competition. Either way, like that's how I see it though. The U.S. and Russia, they were just basically the result of kind of an engineering experiment in World War II with economies and governments and stuff like that. So they're kind of hybrids, kind of like China, and they're all basically the same, run the same way. Organized crime, and same like with Mexico, run by the drug cartels. Organized crime kills 38 in Mexico. So killed 38 people in Mexico despite promises by the newly inaugurated president to reduce violence. Remember I showed a picture of him with one of the new drug cartels. I can never pronounce that, Sonola. But it goes on here. It says many of the bodies in Toluca were dismembered and signs of torture were visible, and some of them had notes besides them from drug gangs. All the links will be posted in YouTube's video description. You can go and check them out. This comes after this article from January 11th. Mexican drug cartels celebrate gun control. And this is kind of not play on words, but here you go. Satire. The best way to depict what's going on in America is through a letter from the head of the Sinaloa drug cartel to President Obama. So you can go there and check it out. Dear President Obama, let me begin by thanking you. You can count on us to support your efforts in disarming American citizens any way we can. So, polls 6 in 10 Americans favor stricter gun control or gun laws. Nearly 6 in 10 Americans want stricter gun laws in the aftermath of last month's deadly PSYOP school shooting in Connecticut, where majorities favoring a nationwide ban on military-style rapid-fire weapons and limits on gun violence depicted in video games, movies, and TV shows. They also want them to do their thinking for them as well. Second Amendment, remnant of revolution or pro-slavery. Again, another propaganda piece from Newser.com. One writer says it was to protect freedom. Another says it was to protect slavery. So, new debates, right? So people are going to go in there and act like they have some kind of say in this democracy. And my quick comment on both of those is that you just had that professor, African-American professor, or black professor, whatever you want to call it, on TV saying that, white people are just afraid of having their guns taken away or gun control because, Latinos and blacks are going to rise up against them. And then, of course, you have this King programming, revolution programming that I see going on in the Patriot movement and all that, and alternative news movement. And they keep referring to Obama as the King, and I think today I saw another article referring to him as the Royal Highness. So they're really triggering that program that's already embedded in these people with these two types. So, but it's a melee, and this is all ordered chaos. Same goes, Then you have this. You can check it out. I'm not being nice. And I am doubly done with the damn leftists in the country performing the moral equivalent of ritual human sacrifice of children to advance their gun control agenda. That's what I charge they're doing. And they go on to back it up with mathematics using just one of the common psychotropic medications used commonly today, Paxil. This is from the prescribing information for Paxil. You may experience worsening of their depression and their emergence of suicidal ideation or tendencies, behavior, suicidality, or unusual changes in behavior. There's a long-standing concern that antidepressants may have a role in inducing worsening of depression and the emergence of suicidal thoughts in certain patients during early phase of treatment. Pooled analysis of short-term placebo-controlled trials of these SSRI drugs show that these drugs increase the risk of suicidal thoughts and behavior in children, adolescents, and young adults 18 to 24 with major depressive disorder and other psychiatric disorders. Other symptoms are even worse: irritability, hostility, aggressiveness, and mania. It doesn't end there, as major depressive episodes may be the initial presentation of bipolar disorder. It's generally believed that treating such an episode with antidepressants alone may increase the likelihood of precipitation of mixed manic episodes in patient at risk of bipolar. In other words, if you miss someone being bipolar and give them this drug, you may precipitate a full-on Hulk-style rage monster sort of attack. What's worse is that if we assume 99% effective surveillance by the medical profession, that is 99% of the time the doctor intercepts the person with manic episodes and modifies or terminates their use of drugs before something bad happens, we create and then fail to detect with nearly perfect performance that we'll never achieve these 1,890 rage monsters every year who are mentally capable of committing a mass homicide. And we prescribe them drugs, we create these zombies. It says we're surprised that there are few of these a year when we create more than 5 of them each and every day with near perfect performance. Mr. Biden, Mr. Obama, and the rest on both the left and right who are refusing to go where the data leaves are all practicing the moral equivalent of ritual child sacrifice, fueling the pyre under the bodies of kids with the Bill of Rights. So, pretty interesting. Go in there and check it out. Then you have this Sanjay Gupta and Tom Ridge warn about psychiatric drugs and mass murderers from the 14th of January. So he's a neurosurgeon and famous chief medical correspondent on CNN. Basically, it goes on and verifies what we were just talking about violence related to drug side effects. Go in there and check it out yourself there. This is what it's all building around, right? They want to make these doctors basically screeners for gun owners. Owner of company that makes top quality firearms posted message on Facebook about mass shooters who had taken psychiatric drugs, was killed in a car accident days later. I'll keep covering this because this is important, gone basically under the radar in the media. So he traveled on to the oncoming lane onto a dirt highway shoulder until it struck 2 boulders and he was ejected and died. And he posted a Facebook message the week before saying what drugs was Adam Peter Lanza on. Last post he ever made. Keep moving fast, so stick with me here. Obama turns doctors into gun control snitches running healthcare spy network. So, yeah, 23 executive orders announced doctors will be transformed into gun control snitches who are ordered by Obama to ask patients about guns they might have at home. Then you have psychiatry goes insane. Every human emotion now classified as a mental disorder in new psychiatric manual, the DSM. So, we all have mental disorders then, right? Just depends on whether you're a dissident or not. It says, breaking, New York creates psychiatric police state. So New York created their own thing, right? They create psychiatrists as cops who must report patients to law enforcement in order to keep the patients from owning a weapon. They must report patients who could potentially harm themselves or others. If such a patient owns a gun, it will be confiscated. A victim expected to recover after a suspect opened fire in a California classroom. Key here is hours after routine lockdown drill. So they had an exercise just hours before. Did it prevent it? No, it didn't. Yet January 14th, Kentucky sheriff says federal gun laws won't apply in his country, or in his company, or in his county, whatever one you want to call it. A third person dies after a Kentucky shooting January 16th. So look at that. Oregon sheriff says executive orders that offend Constitution will not be enforced. This is the same place that had a shooter where an actual concealed carry guy was there handling the situation, actually scared off the crazy shooter. Wyoming lawmakers are proposing gun protection legislation designed to protect gun owners. A lime green toy gun caused a lockdown at Long Island school and SWAT teams after a 9/11 caller who watched too much TV got scared. Parents furious after a boy suspended for using his fingers as a gun. It was the second time in a month a child kicked out of school for using his finger in the shape of a gun. But it makes sense because creativity is now part of a mental illness. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you, and God bless.